Hello everyone and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So today I want to talk about AFK and semi-AFK life skill activities that you can do in this game that generate pretty good amounts of silver. And it's no secret that there's a lot of ways to make silver in this game, whether you're grinding or, life skilling. But I wanted to talk about stuff you can do on the side, as well as, let's say, things that you could just leave the game on and do to make silver while you're not there. That's why they call it AFK activities. But believe it or not, a lot of my silver actually comes in from other activities that isn't grinding circles, and I wanted to share a little bit of insight on what I do just on the regular. So we're gonna go over a lot of different life skills that are actually good and worth doing, and also, what might be something good for you to do as a beginner or returning player, or just someone who's just trying to make more silver around, on your daily. So first and foremost, if you like grinding circles all day, that's cool. You do what you want. It's a game at the end of the day. And realistically, grinding is the best way to make silver in this game. But if you don't like grinding 10 hours a day or whatever, here are some other things that I want to talk about. So, as we all know, in no particular order, I'm just going to go down all of the list and talk about things that I think are actually worth doing. Fishing. As we all know, in the past year or so, I don't even think it's been a year, maybe it has actually been a year since they buffed fishing to the point where it's actually worth doing, and for some people, leaving your game on overnight, it's worth it. So the way they buffed it was they added a lot more rare fish that are like red tier, and those just sell for a lot of silver compared to your highest ones that used to be gold tier fish. And people are making billions of silver a night, if not multiple billions if you get lucky. And that's one of those things where if you just leave your game on overnight, AFK fishing, I think it's pretty good, whether you have the pay to win rod like the Cool Wind or the Grandpa Kron rod, or you just use the non-pay to win Balanos rod. One is more than the other, but fishing overall is pretty good. And so I have a video talking about how to get set up and just like what lightstones artifacts you guys can use. Not going to talk about it in too much detail here. I'll leave the link if you're curious to watch it. But fishing is actually good now. And the next life skill that is actually worth doing, and you should start prepping now, is actually trading. Not like the normal trading that they disabled years ago, but I think over time you should actually start your trade network empire and everything. So one thing that I've been doing with trading is making those timber crates, and the way you could do it is basically have your storage running, pick anything going on, pick a workshop that you're gonna make crates out of, and then at some point you turn those in. The higher your trade level, the more profit you get in your trade-in. But that's something that a lot of people don't actually do, and it's worth doing. And one of the examples I could use right here, if you've been playing this game for a while, you probably have about at least 1 million timbers at some point, right? If you're not going to process them and it just takes too much time, start turning them into crates, and then eventually you'll do a big shipment and it's passive silver along the way. But that's something that I actually should start doing more. But as of right now, I'm limited by contribution points. But for all of you who have extra contribution points or, extra workers that you don't really know what to do with, Calpheon is the most value. Basically, there's a lot more houses and everything here. What you do is look for wood workshop, and any town where you have just a bunch of extra timbers that you don't know what to do with and you're too lazy to process them, start turning it into crates, and then eventually you still have to transport them and trade it, but it's building silver over time, and it's actually worth doing. So the next life skill I want to talk about that is kind of semi-AFK and low-key is very competitive with grinding, and some things that changes the market on the regular. So it's if I told you something now, it might be different in a week. So I'm just going to give you general tips. So cooking is probably one of the most profitable life skills, followed by alchemy. And it's easy to learn and hard to master because things you make, you have to gather the resources and or buy them and, you know, actually do a lot of the math. But if you're into that and you don't like grinding circles, it's probably worth looking into cooking. There's so many recipes in the game that are actually worth doing. Like, for example, various meals that you could turn in for Imperial delivery, or, you know, stuff that endgame players like myself use, like cron meals, all of these things. Whether you're a life skiller or you're a grinder, your chances are you're using one of these. And I will say that, guess what? If they weren't profitable, people wouldn't be doing it. So it's one of those things where you kind of just have to look at the market and figure out what you need and how you can do it at the most cost-effective ways. But once you get that set up, like a system going, then it actually gets easier. The first time you do it, it's going to be extremely overwhelming, I guarantee you, because I felt that way too. But once you like start figuring out like what materials you need here and there, it's probably going to be very easy, because all you have to do is like look at it and be like, okay, so I need to make these meals. You take it like one step at a time, and that's one of the tips I can give you. So like, for example, seafood cron meal, this is the life skill one. It requires like different other meals and then combining them all together. So what I would do is like break it up into multiple days. So like, let's say one day you'll need Balanos meals, the next day you'll do Calpheon meals, and then the next one is like Margoria. So you learn how to do them one step at a time, and then after all of that, you combine them and then make the meal. And then I've seen people make literally like 50, 100 billion a day just doing that. And once you have your like rotation and setup going, you're actually profiting a lot. And I will say cooking is a competitive market, so you have to find the thing that works for you, because it changes on the daily. So it's just one of those things that if you like looking at numbers and you don't like grinding circles, but you want to use like your math skills or something, or your knowledge of the game, I think that's worth doing. And then for things like alchemy, as we all know, there are a lot of potions and elixirs that endgame players and people who like grinding circles do. And so the biggest one, probably harmony elixirs. Same with perfumes, but these are a little bit on the different side of things. But things you can make on the regular are like various drafts, elixirs, harmonies. And this is one of those things as well that if you look at this, if you're a new player and you're like, oh my god, all these potions and stuff, it's overwhelming. But once again, once you get your setup going, it's like basically printing money. You're like, okay, so I need this today. I'm going to gather this material B, C, D on a different day. And then at the end of the week, you kind of just make them, turn it in, sell it. Easy profit. But yeah, I just want to say that like, if these weren't profitable, people wouldn't be doing it. So even if you did, even if you started today, guarantee you you'll be making profit. As long as you're not one of those people that are like, let me just show you this, for example. Harmony elixirs. As long as you aren't that person selling them at minimum price, your chances are you're doing great. And even if you are, just make sure to like actually look at your profits, like calculate and do all the math before you do that. And then, yeah, as much as we would all love to buy it at minimum, you just got to make silver as well. But anyway, next thing, as we all know, is processing. One of those things where you leave it on, and the higher your mastery, the more you process, like AFK. And it's one of those things that I would consider semi-AFK, because you have a weight limit. You have to check back in every 15-20 minutes, reset your process. And so that's kind of like you're not there, but you have to check in every 20 minutes or something. So yeah, if you've had workers going just for multiple years, 9 years in my case, you just have a lot of materials, you want to process them, and you just look at everything and be like, what do I have a lot of today? I'm going to go process them into higher things, and then kind of like using your knowledge of the game of being like, what do I make that's the most profitable? And this game is a very event-driven economy. That means like whatever events there is going on, that might be higher or lower. And yeah, it's one of those things where you just kind of figure it out over time. But all I'll say is the first time you do it, it'll be extremely confusing because you're just like lost and have no idea. But there's a lot of guides out there that you can just follow. And trust me, when I started this in 2016, I'm like, what do I do? There are no guides, but it's 2025 now, and you can just look it up in about 5 minutes. So I think that's pretty cool. The next thing I want to talk about is training. As we all know, riding your horses, catching horses, selling them, very profitable. And they actually buffed it a couple months ago. And so for all of you who have a little bit of mastery in training, you could get the infinite rope and the infinite sugar. Basically, you don't have to think about it. It's kind of like infinite pots, but for catching horses in a way. As we all know, horses, probably one of the most used things in this game, and everyone wants the nice horse. So catching horses, Imperial trading it, or like not Imperial, but like the turn-in thingy, or just turning it into a tier 9 horse and then selling it is very profitable, along with just selling tier 8 coursers, because people still buy them, even though everyone has like a free tier 10 these days, but people still buy them. So anyway, believe it or not, training is actually kind of profitable. It is one of those semi-AFK, well, like you're AFK for long periods of time, but you still have to check in if you're training a horse, getting it to certain levels, and then making sure it's at like it has the right skills. You might have to reset them. But you ever see those people in town who are just like on a loop training their horses? Yeah, that you wouldn't do that if it wasn't profitable. So it's one of those things that is low key, a lot of silver, but people don't really know what to do. So if you're the one person that wants to look into it and figure it out, it's probably very good. And a few more other AFK things. I mean, farming is not really profitable, but you just, whenever the thing glows green like this, goes over 100%, which I'm going to do right after this video, reset your things, make some, it's not a lot of silver, but it's not zero, so it's more useful materials and or contributions and stuff. Farming, it's one of those things, you set it, when it goes to 100, reset it. And then selling and bartering. This is one of the things that I used to do while I was going for my Carrack. And basically, here's how it works. Let's say Ilia Island is your base, and you don't have time to actually play the game. So like, let's say you're starting over here, all your materials are here, and you're doing some bartering, let's say like tier 1, tier 2, 3, 4, 5. You just basically auto path from point A to B, and then B to C, and then so on. And then you come back, and you're just there, and then barter, and then it's kind of easy money. But I will say, selling and bartering is kind of like playing a different game than everyone else. But it's one of those things that you could do for passive extra AFK silver. You don't actually have to watch it as much as you would normally. But aside from that, how I would optimize more silver is basically more mastery equals more silver. And that goes for everything. But with that said, if I were to give you a list of the best AFK activities worth doing, 1 being fishing, 2 being cooking. Actually, I think cooking low-key makes more than fishing, but it's also a little bit more work. So like once you have your setup going and you're just like constantly making whatever you're cooking or alchemy, it kind of stacks up over time. So I think or like a little bit of knowledge and investment into it, and then you start making a lot of silver. Other than that, if you're just lazy and don't want to use your brain at all, fishing is just billions of silver overnight, and you don't really do anything. Just hope to get lucky with the big fish. Processing is one of those things where, like, if you are semi AFK, let's say you're just like watching a TV show or something, and you're not really playing the game, just set it to process, do literally anything, and then sell the materials or whatever, and then more silver. Training, low-key, pretty good. Trading, this is a tricky one because the main life skill is not that good, but if you know how to min-max your crates, it's pretty good. So it like realistically, it's just take the crates from point A to point B, and silver profit is based on distance. So like, for example, if you were to sell it from Calpheon to Heidel, you only make a little bit of it. But if you did it from like Calpheon to Valencia or Morning Light, it's a lot of silver. So aside from that, that's just one of those things you should have running as much as possible. And like, it just kind of, you need to know a little bit, but it's not like a high investment. You just click a few buttons and then every month you reset it. But with that said, how do you get more? Let me just show you some like buffs and everything. You see how people probably have a lot of these secret books and the support scrolls, and you're like, oh, just 100 mastery. Low-key, 100 mastery is billions of silver if you know how to optimize it. And I see a lot of new players just using this randomly. And if you did the math, let me show you something. Like, let's just look at pre-owned accessories, for example. These are the endgame accessories for life skillers. Let's say this one has 100 at Tet, right? So 100 all life skill mastery. Now going up into like, 200, you see how this one is like 200 mil or 200 billion versus, 30 billion? That's how much like mastery is in a way. It's not like exactly, it's not like saying, oh, one of these scrolls is worth 170 bills. It's not that. But, mastery is important. That's why these things are expensive, because people, more is better up to like 3,000. So if you have a lot of these, what I would recommend is get a rotation and use it for when you're doing something important. So like gathering is very important. Cooking or alchemy when you know you're going to be doing large crafts, because you'll get a lot of XP, and mastery procs as well. And so, yeah, just one of those things where you see how a lot of these buffs from events that they give you, and they give you life skill mastery, it's actually worth more than you think it is, especially if it puts you up into higher brackets. And the way you can figure that out yourself is like, you just go to your life skills and be like, what does more mastery give? And then, like, for example, fishing, more mastery equals higher chance of catching prize fish, make more silver, right? So yeah, that's one of those things that I see people doing all the time, and just they're kind of wasting these. And yeah, 100 mastery is actually a lot. And if I were to calculate this, if this had a sell value on the market, I think I would probably buy these for like probably about like 50 to 100 mil each. Because like for people like me, I could turn this into literally billions with an hour. But for new players, make sure you know what you're doing before you actually start using them. And that's about it. So make sure to actually buff up when you're doing it. Tent buff, any life skill buffs you're doing. Be careful on the mastery if you're doing something that's not high value, and then use it for your high value things. But ultimately, yeah, a lot of my silver comes in from life skilling and getting some sort of worker setup started, and then once you figure out all of that, you turn it into a lot of silver. But anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about. There's a lot of things I could do that would probably make this video like an hour, but maybe we'll do a part 2 in the future. And thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace.